Rubis, serious question here. Who's next?
All of them.
Happy Tuesday and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. Of course, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Make sure you join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. I'm Anthony Totri, joined as always by the one, the only passenger princess himself,
Yes.
Erik Ruby. We've got the deli man behind the Mac making all of the magic happen. JJB just spawning in the chat immediately, talking about basketball. Make sure you hit that like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Look, we always are talking Arizona State, but maybe my favorite thing that we get to discuss around this time of the year is these high school recruits that continue to take official visits to Arizona State, that are starting to get down to the wire of their top threes, their top fives. It's become really, really fun to see the type of player that Kenny Dillingham and this Arizona State staff is going to add. We talked a little bit about the latest ASU commit to Quan done on Monday's show. We're going to have a tail of the tape for you guys coming out a little bit later on this week. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. But the question off the top, Rubis, was who's next? And we got two potential commits for Arizona State, one on offense, one on defense.
Love it. Love it. I feel that was the whole show right there.
Boom, that's it.
Let's
get out of here. Perfect.
Let's wrap it up. You got the tail of the tape on deck. We should be good.
Yeah. That's all we need.
I'm excited. It is fun now because when you're in a spot with the program that you were a couple years ago, it was almost hard to talk about the future.
Yeah.
And look at these recruits and these. It's just like, do we know if that's going to really turn into success? Do we know if that's really going to be a net positive for the program? Plus, of course, the caliber of players as far as stars go.
Yeah.
I'm not going to actually say that the actual caliber of them is lower, but overall ranked lower than what you're able to get now. So all of that being on the flip side, now that this team is actually good and has the long-term prospects of being good, it's fun.
Yeah.
Because now you can start looking at pieces and look at the best parts of them and say, wow, how could you turn that into something successful on the field like they've done with so-and-so already on the roster?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, kind of to the point that we made yesterday, right? There are people that talk a lot about the stars of these types of players. Yesterday, the Daquan Dunn commitment news came out. He's a 3-star DB, not anything that's, going to shatter recruiting rankings. But again, we dove into the importance of a player like that and him potentially being a gem down the line for Arizona State. And two guys that we'll talk about today as it relates to Arizona State could be, by my estimation, players that could have a pretty early impact at Arizona State, starting with a guy who is going to be announcing his official decision on where he's going to be spending the next 4 years, potentially change, is going to be linebacker Mason Marden. He is committing tomorrow evening. Arizona State
Sun Devil
is on the list. So this is definitely one that you could see ultimately join the Arizona State recruiting class by the end of the day tomorrow. A 3-star linebacker. Pretty good size for a guy who still has a year of high school football left, 6'3", 220 pounds. And we talked yesterday about where Arizona State has kind of made a footprint, right? Texas, got a kid from Arizona, got a couple from California, got a couple from Georgia. This would be somewhere that we haven't really seen Dilly dip into, and this is Missouri for Arizona State. So, again, this kid, Mason Marden, I love the instincts that you immediately see on tape of this kid. Plays both ways. Plays linebacker, plays a little bit of tight end as well. I think for Arizona State, this would be strictly a linebacker addition.
We are full on tight ends.
I think, yeah, we are. And I mean, we'll potentially talk
we're
about
going to talk about another one
a little bit later on. But what have you seen from Mason? I know I'm the guy that normally does the tail of the tapes and all that fun stuff, but I love to get your initial thoughts when you're able to see some of these kids and how they could fit at ASU.
He's super quick.
Yeah.
He's super quick, super fast for 6'3", 220. I mean, sometimes it's easier to see that on offense. I mean, he had some pretty big breakaway catches, but on defense, super quick. He's good at just jumping the line of scrimmage, getting through, and not really getting a lot of resistance. Now, is that because he's at a high school level, or is that because he's a freight train?
Yeah.
That's something that's still to be seen, but really quick feet as well. Not just straight line speed, but shifting direction, making plays like, hey, let me sniff out the screen. Let me sniff out this quick pass over the middle and find that and not get burned. I think the number one thing that just shocked me was how fast he was.
Yeah. And I think when you see players, especially at this linebacker position, that play that fast, instincts and that first step quickness to be able to identify, okay, is it a run? Is it a pass? What are we doing there? And I think that's for me, when I say instinct, something that I think you can see immediately on tape, which is not something that you can often say about a high school player, is that, okay, I can turn on the tape and I can see this kid react just as fast as anybody on offense would be reacting to where the play is going.
And
right?
like in different circumstances too. He's not just strong at sniffing out something behind the line of scrimmage. He's like, oh, I'm good at identifying a run play.
Yeah.
Right? It's in the moment, backtracking when somebody's catching the ball. It's okay, it is behind the line of scrimmage. If he needs to go in and help set up somebody else to get a tackle, a smart player for sure.
Yeah, is it, and again, to your point, when we talk first step quickness, is it, okay, I can just read the play and then I have to catch up to it? Or is it, can I read the play and within that first 2-3 steps, am I already in a position to make a play? Not for them to come at me, but for me to make a TFL. And you look at what this kid does, right, to further the idea that he's got great instincts, great first step quickness, had 170 total tackles in 2024.
Jeez.
20 of those were for a loss. So evidently he is getting to these run plays. He's getting to the quarterback. He had 3 sacks last season, 2 interceptions, four forced fumbles. He just has a nose for the football. I know somebody said it a little bit earlier in the chat. But Arizona State doesn't have the deepest linebacker room in terms of like long term, right? You look at what they have on the roster now. Jordan Crook, who's a senior this year. Keyshawn Elliott, who's a senior this year. Cyrus Fiaseu, who's a redshirt senior this year. Like, you're going to be losing all 3 of those guys pretty much in theory, unless someone comes back as like a grad. Like, you're losing your entire linebacker rotation outside of Martell Hughes, who is a younger, I believe, true sophomore in this linebacker room. So to have an addition like this, it's something similar to what we talked about with Daquan Dunn the other day, where, hey, you are not coming in year one and probably expecting to go out there and be cornerback 1, right? We saw it with Keith. We saw it with younger guys like Montana Warren, even guys like a Rodney Bimich, right, who's still working to hit the field. But overall, in a couple seasons, when these guys get here, like Keith's going to be gone. Javen's going to be gone. These linebackers are going to be gone that we're talking about. And then you add in potentially, again, he hasn't chosen Arizona State yet, but Mason Marden, I think, could be a pretty early impact player at that linebacker position for Arizona State. Aaron Ferguson throwing out Tate Romney there as well. This kid, I think, again, Sun Devil fans are going to be really excited. Hopefully tomorrow when he makes that announcement. It does appear he's got a little bit of a Final Four. Arizona State, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. So the only Big 12 school still in play, it appears to be Arizona State. One thing I will say is Mason did have his official visit to ASU about 18 days ago. He is committing tomorrow, which is May 21st, yet he has other official visits technically scheduled and listed.
Interesting.
So maybe he took a visit and at that point was like, okay, I'm done. I don't really need to do these. Or again, he could choose one of these other schools and then potentially go on a visit later on.
Well, but if he's committing beforehand, do we think that doesn't play in favor of Arizona State?
I think it does play in favor of Arizona State.
If he still has the visits lined up.
He
afterwards.
won't if he chooses Arizona
then
State.
he won't be going on those
then
visits.
I would.
That's what I'm saying.
I would not expect him.
So
to
does
go.
that mean that he hasn't chosen Arizona? I
just playing devil's advocate here.
Like, would it mean that he hasn't chosen Arizona State because he still has those visits lined up?
Guess we'll find out tomorrow.
I guess we will find out tomorrow. Just a couple more things on Mason Marden. Also was varsity track for a year at Ladue Horton Watkins High School. Of course, we all know.
What a school, huh?
We all know about LHWH, right? 4.5440 as a middle linebacker in high school.
I mean, that's pretty fast, man.
Not
even for like a senior in high school. It's for a kid that has another year.
He's 6'3", 220, runs a 4.5, 4.40 as a junior in high school. Watch him play both sides of the ball. It takes a smart type of player to play both sides of the ball. It's not an easy thing on any level.
Play.
Right, it's not an easy thing on any level, and he wasn't obviously used a ton in the offense, but when he was effective. He's got good hands, which can also play with the interceptions. I believe you said he grabbed 4 on the defensive side of the ball. So definitely a kid to keep your eye on if he does commit to Arizona State as he plays next season, and to see if those total tackles and tackles for a loss goes up if he continues to play both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Maybe a Keona Pete tribute play, get him on the offensive side of the ball even though he plays defense. But this is exciting. Plus I like that he wears 0. I like that.
I'm with it. Again, statistically 170 total tackles, 20 TFLs, 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. Still finding ways to get the ball back for his offense. And then as a member of the offense, carried the ball 15 times for 294 yards and 4 touchdowns. So just put the ball in his hand, and if you don't, he's going to go get it himself.
He will make plays.
Will in the chat saying not football related, but Kenzie Brown is confirmed to be returning for the softball team.
Thank God.
That would be, that'd be huge, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it yesterday.
That's your bona fide best player.
Easily your best player, one of the best pitchers in the Big 12. Maybe we chat a little bit about that later on. But yeah, certainly some big news if Kenzie Brown is returning to Arizona State softball next season. Do you want to, I'm going to ask you, Rubens, since I know you've had a little bit of an attitude today off camera. So I just want to be on your good side. I just want to be on your good side today. Do you want to get into the next potential commit outside of Mason before or after a break?
Before.
You want to do it before a break?
Now, see, here's the thing. Now I am going to be in a bad mood.
Why?
Because of this.
Why? Because I'm asking you. I just want your thoughts. I want your thoughts.
Now I am in a bad mood.
I didn't say you were in a bad mood. You took what I said.
I feel like, guys, the last couple of days, you two have had something special. And today you've just broken all of that.
That's what we do.
Look, I didn't say you were in a bad mood.
What did you say?
I said you've had a little bit of attitude today. Doesn't mean you've been in a bad mood by any means.
Then what does a little bit of an attitude mean?
It just means you've been a little spicy today. That's all. What's wrong with that? Huh?
Well, I'm going to get more spicy.
Oh, here we go.
Right after this break. I know I set it up and I looked at the time, so we're just going to shift it.
Oh, my goodness.
Listen.
Listen.
No, you got it.
Jeez. I'm here to tell you about our friends over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. On top of the fact that we are always doing PHNX watch-alongs and events over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, you could stop by any one of their 4 casinos and have a grand old time. Maybe work is stressing you out. Maybe the in-laws are in town and you just need to get away. Well, go check out Gila River Resorts Casinos. You can catch every thrilling moment over at the BetMGM Sportsbooks over at Gila River Resorts Casinos with massive screens, delicious food, drinks, and all the action. Of course, we are in the thick of the NBA playoffs. They've got UFC events, UFC cards, PGA championships, the Indy 500. The list goes on and on and on. It is the ultimate place to watch and win. Place your bets and experience the excitement. Plus, maybe you're not somebody that wants to sports bet, but you love going to the casino. Well, check out their amazing restaurants. Maybe you want to get yourself a suite and chill for the weekend. You could do that as well. Or you could do what the Deli Man loves to do, and you can hit the gaming floor with all that they have for you. Again, over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you at Gila River Resorts Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details.
No matter how much Totri and I might disagree on things, there's one thing that we can agree on, everybody can agree on, is that the more money you save, the better off you are.
Facts.
Right? And that's why Monarch Money is so important. I'm spending a weekend at Gila River Resorts and Casinos this weekend. And, I had to save up a little bit for that.
Didn't invite me.
That's where Monarch Money comes in, because I was overspending. I was wasting my money, being irresponsible with my little attitude as always.
Yeah. That's what you do, man. You said it, not me.
And Monarch Money said, no more of that. No more attitude when it comes to your finances. Start managing your finances to build the life that you actually want. Monarch Money makes managing money simple, even for busy folks just like you. It's a finance tool that people actually love. Named the Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. All your accounts, credit cards, investments, all in one place in an easy-to-use interface, so you can get 50% off. Get control over your finances with Monarch Money. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code PHNX.
Boom.
Mac wants me to funnel my attitude towards Brent Brennan and the Wildcats.
We need...
Machiavelli's a great chat name, by the way.
It is.
Great name.
We need to have that clip of Erik saying "my little attitude" somewhere, just like saved in a folder. Just
my little attitude.
Anytime he has attitude,
I'll take me and my little attitude.
Take me and my little attitude. Save some money. Listen, I can get spicy if you want me to get spicy.
I mean, it's what you do. You get spicy from time to time.
Do you like spicy food?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he likes. He claims to have a really
strong spice tolerance.
No, not strong. No, just an eccentric palate.
I have I don't know if that's the right word. Palate. I have a diverse palate.
There you go, diverse.
Yeah. A more diverse palate than
eccentric
Anthony Totri.
would be like
a more diverse palate than me,
Anthony
apparently.
Totri, for sure.
So here's the thing.
For sure.
Erik,
for sure, he says.
I'm going to get your little attitude.
See, look at the attitude.
And I'm going to show you a little attitude a little bit.
Okay.
You could have just went on and said, I have a diverse palate, but instead you had to compare.
Yeah,
no, because this is a conversation that we've had before. Like, and he was going to bring it up, so I just figured
I wasn't going to bring it up. I was sitting here trying to break bread with you, Mr. Diverse Palate, and then you threw it at my face.
Sorry, I threw my diverse palate in your face. That's my bad.
Please take it back.
Here, taking my diverse palate back.
Oh my goodness.
Speaking of diverse palate, I had cow stomach in Florence.
Had what?
That's crazy.
It was good.
Had what?
Cow stomach. Specifically,
what did it taste like? Chicken?
No, it tasted like it was like real Italian beef. There was like giardiniera and stuff on it. That is giardiniera? Is that what it's called?
I don't know, man. I got a terrible.
Chat,
I don't eat cow tummy, man.
It's not.
I don't eat cow tummy.
Because
you're lactose intolerant.
I'll just share something fun with you guys.
How did you eat it? How did you eat it? Did it just come with like a slab of cow stomach, or like?
No, so it was at this like really famous. I guess it was kind of a deli sandwich stand in a market. Yeah. And Leah was like, I'm gonna get the bolognese, and I was like, I'm gonna get the cow stomach. It was like,
why did you choose? Like, were there
because it was like it's like really famous there.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's like a thing, and it was really good. It didn't taste. I really just had to get over the texture of it, but it just looked like Italian beef.
What's the texture of it? Like raw bacon?
No, it was just like a little bit more chewy, I guess. But it was good. It was really good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Came with really good bread. It was tasty.
Sharon saying cow tummies are not good for Totri's tummies. Most things are like just don't agree with my stomach. So
why do you think that is? Is this something you did in a past life that's cursed to you?
No, I just think I don't know. I probably drink one too many of these that have destroyed the inner linings of my stomach. But it's probably I'm not gonna stop. Like, come on, what are we? I'm not a quitter. Mama didn't raise a quitter here.
You did quit for a little bit.
Energy drinks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said I could only have one bad habit at a time. And I just quit my last bad habit.
So what did you get rid of?
What did I get rid of? I got rid of something, and now I'm adding these back.
We'll talk offline.
We'll talk offline. Inhaling helium.
He was like, I was doing whippets while driving, and now I just do them at home.
No, just energy drinks again. My goodness. Okay,
hey, can I tell everybody something cool?
You can.
I'm wearing here. Let me turn this around. This hat right here. By the way, this hat. You see this?
Where'd you get that?
Go PHNX.com.
Was it expensive?
No.
What's the little BB stand for on the side?
Branded bills.
Wow.
Now, here's the thing about branded bills. You can get your own custom headwear and apparel, and we have our own Phoenix branded bills hat. It is one of my favorite hats. It is so comfortable. Cambino says, not the game, but we talking about cow tummy. Get your Brandon Bills hats. Go to gophnx.com. Hit the merch tab. Brandon Bills, PHNX, a match made in heaven.
My goodness. Yeah, another match made in heaven would be Arizona State and 3-star tight end Landen Miree, a class of 2026 tight end, which, again, pretty high on Arizona State's list, or I guess I should say he's pretty high. Or Arizona State's high on his list. Excuse me. Jeez, words are hard. 6'4", 215 pounds. If we're talking adding another state to where Dilly and company are adding players from, Cincinnati, Ohio for Landen Miree. So the Dilly man himself would be going into uncharted territory. Landen Miree, though, with a number of big-time Power 4 schools, also trying to get his services for the class of 2026. Florida State, Washington, Cincinnati, North Carolina, Auburn are some of the other schools that are, again, pretty high up on Miree's list, but a number of other offers outside of that. Kid's got offers from Florida, Illinois, LSU, Michigan State, NC State, Missouri, SMU, Texas A&M, Wisconsin. Like, the list goes on and on for some big-time Power 4 schools. And you know, Shane off camera before the show was talking about all the tight end commits that Arizona State already has kind of long term, right? We talk about Jaden Fortier, who was a part of the last class. You have AJ Ia, who's going to have an impact or should have an impact this year as a freshman tight end. And then you look at Hayden Vircher, who is already committed in the class of 2026. Like,
I'm on the same page as Erik. I'm yawning.
You're yawning?
I'm yawning.
You don't want another tight end.
Okay, so here's the thing. I went in to watching Landen Miree film.
If you tell me that you want him as a long snapper, you can leave.
I mean, it's good to have somebody who can do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Thinking to myself, God, no more tight ends. I'm fine on tight ends. And then, like, you watch the kid play.
If there is a position on offense, it's a pass catcher that that's a great thing to have a surplus of. But maybe why not maybe like a wide receiver? I don't know. I guess Fortier is kind of a wide receiver.
Yeah, Fortier.
I think they need to move him to wide receiver.
I think
his body type fits more as a big wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, again, he's still such a young player as a redshirt freshman. He could certainly make that position change.
And he's a goose.
He is a goose.
He's a
golden goose. Golden goose.
No, this guy, Landen Miree, is pretty damn good.
Yeah. Yeah,
toe tap touchdowns, like sticky hands, pancakes guys into the ground blocking, runs the ball, long snapper. He kind of does it all.
He does do it all. And again, we just finished talking about Mason, right, who plays offense and defense. This kid as a tight end, long snapper, like Daquan Dunn, who we talked about yesterday, is a wide receiver and corner. Arizona State has evidently made it a point to go get guys that can really be versatile and you can move them all over the field. I think this year for Arizona State, you might see Marcus Arroyo in this offense dip into a little bit of 13 personnel, which for those that don't know would be 1 running back and 3 tight ends. I think they're going to have a lot of success doing that this season with the tight ends that they have, right? Shaman, Kamari, and then AJ. If you add Landen, you've already got Vircher to this class. You're talking AJ coming back for hopefully years to come. You still have Fortier. Like, we may see Arizona State start to run 13 personnel more often with the types of running backs that they're getting.
Tight end you?
I mean, I'm here for it. And I think, again, being in play for another highly recruited tight end just speaks to what Jason Mons has been able to do as a position coach, right? Somebody that for such a long period of time was so successful at the high school ranks and then eventually made that trip over to ASU. And who was his first tight end room, right? It was Messiah Swinson and Jalen Conyers and Bryce Pierre, which was a group that we thought was really, really good. Now, the offense at the time wasn't necessarily cohesive enough to really involve those tight ends. Swinson was gone. Then you brought back Conyers. And you started to see a little bit more production. And then you get to this past season and you see immediately the production from Shaman, who's an all-conference tight end. And you're like, okay, year over year, it feels like Arizona State has always had bigger body tight ends. And we've always heard about how the Sun Devils are going to utilize these tight ends. We see it in spring. We're like, man, These guys are really, really athletic. Some of the best athletes on the field. They can block, they can run, they can catch, they can throw at times, right? They can do it all. And now year over year, you're starting to see these guys actually be utilized in an offense that has an elite level quarterback and in Sam Levitt. So I think it speaks to just the success that ASU had last year, the development of this offense with Marcus Arroyo and Kenny Dillingham and Sam and Scat, Shaman at that tight end position. The more success that ASU has year over year at key positions like tight end, you're going to start to see more of these guys be like, okay, let's go to ASU.
Look at what the running back position has done. It carries across coaches. It carries across decades. Even if it's not intentional, where a running back will choose Arizona State because it has a good running back history, those type of things just kind of happen.
Yeah.
We look at the string of running backs that have been here the last decade, right? Now we're going to look at the tight ends, and then you can look at maybe the wide receivers. Does Jordan Tyson continue something that we saw from Elijah Badger and N'Keal Harry? What about Sam Levitt? Is Sam Levitt the first in line of a steady stream of quarterbacks that are coming in? And with Landen specifically, he feels like the type of player that would thrive in this offensive system where he's really great at getting open. He's great at getting down and dirty. You can hand him the ball if you want to play some sort of like trick play.
Yeah.
You can keep him away from the ball entirely and he would still be effective. I'm very high. I would say I'm more high on Landen overall as a player, 6'4", 220. They have him as a tight end and a wide receiver listed than maybe I would be with Mason.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he squats 360.
That's you and me probably combined. More than that, actually.
How much do you weigh?
How much do you weigh?
195.
I weigh a lot less than that. So
how much do you weigh?
A lot less than that. Landen Miree,
92?
Let's play guess each other's weights.
Let's play guess each other's weights. I'm okay on that game.
One random thing while we just got off track. I was waiting for the right point.
One more random thing after we just discussed that?
Yeah. It has nothing to do with anything we talked about. My favorite thing about watching huddle highlights is high schools that steal pro logos and just change the colors. Like Landen,
they stole the Minnesota
Landen
Vikings.
goes to Princeton High School and it's the Vikings and it's just red.
Yeah.
It's just the red
Literally
Vikings.
red instead of purple.
I love that. That's such a fire move.
What do you guys think the most used?
It might be the Viking.
No. I know what it is.
Oh, you know what it is?
It has to be the Packers / Georgia. G.
Oh, yeah. You do see the G a lot.
The G, yeah.
That's probably a safe answer.
Yeah. Has to be. That's the one I see the most by far.
What else? What else would be? The Colts is probably another one.
Yeah. I see the like
Wolves, something Wolves related.
I see the Panthers a lot too.
Yeah. That's a good one.
By the way, Landen also plays basketball as well. Two-sport athlete. Bobby, get on the phone.
I love the fact that this kid, what he does the best is he blocks. This kid blocks really well. He is a man mover. And
he's got good hands.
Arizona State, we've got some pretty athletic tight ends, right? With AJ, Hayden Vircher. You throw in Landen Miree, a guy that, again, with pretty good size, would be one of the still smaller tight ends for Arizona State. But he can block. He's probably bigger than some of these other tight ends that you would get weight-wise at this level, at least coming out of high school. So I'll take it.
Sorry, he needs to put on some weight for sure.
At 220?
But like 230-ish, 240-ish. Because if you want him to be a main type of blocker, like you look at Cameron Harpool, who he is 6'3", 245, Landen 6'4", 220 as a junior in high school, which is just so crazy.
Yeah, it's
6'4", 220. But you saw how effective Arizona State was having Cameron, who was primarily in there for blocking.
Yeah.
And Shaman, who would block, but was primarily in there to catch.
Yeah.
So I think that, not Mason, sorry, but Landen's hands are better than Cameron's. I think he'd be used in more actual offensive like plays where they'd have him run routes and, go to catch the ball. But if you are going to use him more blocking wise, you've seen success having a dual tight end system like that.
Oh, 100%. And again, like it might throw some people off when we say that he would be one of the smaller tight ends to enter this room. Again, 6'4", 220 is what he's listed at. Looks more like a 6'3", 210 type of guy. Whereas the rest of the ASU tight end room will go Shaman, who's a redshirt senior, is 6'4", 250. AJ, who's a true freshman, is 6'6", 255. Kamari Anderson, who's a junior, he's 6'5", 245. Colson Aarons, a redshirt sophomore, 6'4", 240. James Giggy is a redshirt freshman, 6'4", 250. Jaden Fortier is a redshirt freshman, 6'4", 215. And then redshirt senior Cameron Harple is 6'3", 250. So Fortier is the smallest tight end weight-wise in this room at 215 pounds, but we just talked about him potentially moving to wide receiver down the line, which I think would be pretty beneficial for his long-term career. But I'm obviously not the one making those decisions in those meetings.
You should be.
But again, like the average playing size at Arizona State at tight end is about 6'5", 6'4", 240 pounds, like you said.
And you can get there. Glenn says not nitpicking a freshman who comes in at that weight. If it's what you can add to his frame, and our strength coach will get him right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You look at the intangibles here as well. You probably don't want somebody carrying those extra 25, 30 pounds in high school.
No.
Honestly.
And he doesn't need to.
You don't need to. No,
right?
He's already way bigger.
Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Again, make sure you hit that like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you drop a 5-star
What a comment
review
from ASAV85.
wherever you get your podcast.
You're a quitter.
I'm a quitter, apparently.
He doesn't even know what you quit. He thinks you quit something else.
Yeah, I quit the Christmas tree, apparently, is what the comment is telling me.
I think you were blowing on a Christmas tree.
I was blowing on a Christmas tree?
No, the Christmas tree was farting. That's what that is.
Okay. Or he was running? Was the tree running?
The tree's running.
Yeah, the tree's...
Why are you running?
Why are you running?
There you go. Any other thoughts on these two potential commits?
More tight ends.
More tight ends.
More tight ends.
You know what's funny?
More tight ends.
Will's brought up a couple times that like the amount of tight ends on the roster and whatever. Like I get the numbers thing. Like yes, it makes sense if you were to get these guys, then you'd be filled through. What I'm saying is, I just want a 4-star that isn't a tight end.
You want a different position.
Yeah. I would like maybe could I interest you in a 4-star corner?
Yeah, I mean, sure, you
could.
could.
Interest you in a 4-star edge?
Yes.
Interest you in a 4-star IDL?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, those don't happen.
Maybe a 4-star IDL with a CDL, so he could also drive a Mack truck.
Okay. For both of you, questions. If you could only choose one of these kids, you're adding them. Are you choosing Mason or are you choosing Landen?
Mason.
But that's just because you have tight end bias.
Yeah.
You hate tight ends.
I don't hate tight ends.
Shane Dieffenbach, tight end hater.
I only hate Jalen.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Give me Landen.
You're taking Landen?
I'll take Landen.
Tight end, linebacker.
Call me Mr. Tight End.
Okay. You want that nickname? You can have it, buddy.
My favorite thing is when I say something stupid and I look at Shane and his eyes just get really
They just
wide.
like gloss over.
He's just like...
Sometimes Shane looks at us like, "Oh, they're so stupid." Like that's
yeah, it is like, oh.
I would say if I had to pick between one, I would go with Mason, just based off the fact that you are losing a lot of linebacker depth next year. Now, that's not to say that some of these younger guys that you already have aren't going to develop over this past year, or that ASU won't go add players in the transfer portal. Right? Kenny and AJ Cooper, they've done a phenomenal job adding linebackers through the transfer portal. I mean, the 3 guys that we mentioned that will be leaving after this year or likely to leave: Jordan Crook, Keyshawn Elliott, Zyrus Viaseu. They were all added in the transfer portal. So we'll see, obviously, what comes of these two class of 2026 recruits. Again, Mason is set to announce his official decision tomorrow evening. So definitely be on the lookout for that PHNX _Sun Devils if he does ultimately commit to Arizona State. But we've talked a lot about the Sun Devils, rightfully so. This is an Arizona State podcast. But I want to zoom out.
Talk more.
I want to zoom out, talk more about an impending decision that could affect not just ASU, but realistically a lot of major programs as it relates to the House settlement involving NIL, revenue sharing, and all that fun stuff. But before we do that, we are going to take our final break. Look, I am a big believer on saving money. I know you are as well. You just talked about it in the last ad break, but you guys need a place that you can trust to help you not only with savings, but your checkings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and so much more. So you're probably sitting there saying, like, really? Is there a place that can help me with all of those things? And the answer is yes,
Wow.
Rubus. It's Desert Financial Credit Union. Plus, it's the only place that you guys can show your team spirit every time that you make a purchase. They've got exclusive debit cards that have like branding for the Arizona Cardinals, Arizona State. Maybe you're a Lumberjack fan and you want an NAU card. DFCU, they've got you covered with that as well. I know Rubus's family has been using Desert Financial Credit Union. Since the Stone Ages, it feels like at this time. They trust them. They love them.
Buddy.
They continue to use them. Okay, man.
Yes.
My goodness.
To this day.
Look, join a credit union that is committed to giving back to the community and sharing success with its members. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200.
The last thing you want when you're making a big decision like flooring is to have these so-called flooring experts have a little attitude.
Yeah.
You just don't want that from your flooring.
No, you don't want them to be spicy.
Experts. No, you want them to be down to earth.
Yeah.
You want them to be informed. And that's why Empire Today is here for you. Unlike those awful big box stores who want to leave you in the dust, make the most money possible, and leave your life a living hell, Empire Today is the exact opposite. Not only will they give you $350 off just for listening to this show, lucky you, but they're also going to give you clear, upfront, all-inclusive pricing, in-home estimates, next-day installation, and flooring experts who know what to put in your home, from style to color to how it meshes all together. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better off at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 off discount when using promo code PHNX. That's right, $350 off with promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/PHNX for full details.
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 I like how that rolled off the tongue when you
Details.
Wow. Didn't know you had that octave.
Oh, I can get in this octave.
Okay, well,
Let's talk about
I don't
the
like your face when you do that.
NCAA.
Yeah, it's too much.
Hey, new rules. House settlement. Whoa.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was painful. That was painful to have to be a part
Don't
of.
act like you don't like it.
I don't. Ew, don't call me by my first name either.
You like
That was
it.
bad. That was bad.
Say you like it.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. Shane, make him stop. Thank you. I appreciate. No, you.
Mute both mics.
Okay. No, both of them are muted now. Yeah. Yeah. You talk and I'll voice over. Yeah. Go ahead. And the NCAA. Not gonna be. I can't do that.
There you go. Look, Shane loves this type of topic. I feel like you do. So don't give me that face. You've always.
That was a very random thing to say.
Shane loves these type of topics.
Shane, you love court settlements.
Shane, no, not like that. But Shane likes what's it called? Just like, he loves discussions that are going to completely alter the way that college sports works.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well,
you should have seen Shane when we first, like years ago at this point, when the whole like conference realignment discussions were happening.
I just no. Yeah.
Shane planted his flag on the, if it doesn't make geographical sense,
Yes.
I don't want it.
It's fair.
College football Pangea needs to exist.
Yeah. So
And it's-
that's why I'm curious to have this conversation about the house settlement thing and get your thoughts on it, get Rubus's thoughts, get the chat's thoughts on it.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the house settlement has been a big topic of discussion for a while now as it relates to kind of revenue sharing and all of that fun stuff. Front Office Sports, I believe, is the place that had just published a story on the NCAA not going to enforce the house settlement when that whole situation is resolved. NCAA President Charlie Baker said the power conferences are going to be in charge of running the NIL clearinghouse and revenue sharing cap, not the NCAA itself. So that is certainly what feels like the first step in kind of a new era of college sports, and I know it feels like
How many first steps in the new era do we have to take?
I know.
I want to take a second step.
This is like almost taking us out of the era that we're in. You know what I mean? Because like today's era, it does feel like a lot like wild, wild west of like, okay, you could do this. Money is whatever, right? If you are a big donor, you can donate however much money you want to these players. And it does feel like a pay for play type of situation. After this House settlement, though, they're realistically trying to get away from that in general. So I'll read you a little bit of an excerpt from that Front Office Sports article so you get kind of an understanding as to what's going on. So the NCAA is going to essentially cede the enforcement of amateurism rules, so player compensation restrictions, to the actual power conferences. We're talking the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC. And the NCAA will retain enforcement of other concepts, right? Like academic eligibility, in-game sports rules, sports betting, all that same stuff. The governing body will also continue to run championships and is going to pay for a significant amount of the House settlement damages. Now, that House and NCAA settlement is still awaiting a final decision, which you could get a ruling as early as this week. It is May 20th as of right now. The settlement of I can't even.
Consolidation.
There you go. Of 3 major antitrust cases offering $2.8 billion in back damages to players who couldn't earn NIL money before 2021. So going forward, it allows all D1 schools to share revenue with players up to an annual cap starting at $20.5 million, but also implements a clearinghouse to scrutinize NIL collectives and booster deals to ensure that it's somewhat of a fair system. It's not a pay-for-play situation. And to kind of wrap this whole thing up, they're going to try to implement a college sports commission, which will be created and overseen by the 4 Power 4 conferences and not the NCAA itself. It's going to make sure all those D1 schools are abiding by the cap on revenue sharing. It's also going to own NIL Go, the clearinghouse software created by Deloitte that's going to use data to scrutinize whether an NIL deal offered by a collective or booster is offering fair market value or whether the deal is actually pay-for-play disguised as NIL.
Could you imagine how mad you would be if you get a bag from someplace and NIL Go says, no, that's higher than your market value. Yeah, you're getting pay-for-play. I'd be mad. Also, I like to imagine NIL Go, like Pokemon Go, where you walk around on the street and you're like, ooh, I'm going to get a brand deal with so-and-so.
I would definitely do that. That would be the sickest game out there to be.
Play NIL Go.
But this would change a lot. And when I said earlier, like the first step of a new era, I mean more around the NCAA and it as a governing body. Right?
Or not as a governing body.
Because for such a long period of time, it feels like the fan bases, certain programs won't go out and say it, but there is a distaste of what the NCAA does, right?
Yeah.
So could we be moving away from the NCAA as a governing body and having these Power 4 conferences realistically start to individually govern everything that's going on? I think the House settlement is a good stepping stone or starting block for all of this stuff.
I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I think the annual cap is interesting, how that might affect different schools, because how much are you allotting to non-football sports?
And does it have to be?
So I don't want to say that's a good thing. I want to see how that plays out. It's certainly going to change. I'm all for the NCAA just doing less and less and being less and less involved, but this is just so classic them. It's so classic. I don't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah, Will saying NCAA is rage quitting. They're just going to dissolve at this point.
Good. I'm fine with them dissolving. But I am interested for, let's say, Arizona State specifically, that has so many sports.
Yeah.
Right? Does a $20.5 million cap limit how much you can invest in those other sports, because they're all going to take a small share of the pie? And of course, you still want your main moneymaker sports, right? Your basketballs of both genders, the football, softball, sports that people can buy into, the baseball part of it. Do you want to take money away from them when you now have a cap of what to do and give it towards a non-revenue sport, which is still wildly important?
It is wildly important, but I'm curious for you and for Shane's thought on this, because I have seen that ultimately there is discussion, and I don't know if it's already done or if it's just discussion and discourse about it, but that you would need to split the $20.5 million down the middle when it comes to men's and women's sports. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on that ultimate decision around the House settlement and, potentially all of that?
I mean, I don't think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you're looking, because take equal pay, take genders out of this. Look at what are the nicknames for the sports? There's revenue sports, there's non-revenue. So imagine you're splitting those sports that money between every sport. That just doesn't make any sense. Well, that's very micro and it's a way bigger question than that. But it's also, you can't just look at this at a macro level and say 50-50 in general. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And it's also going to give an advantage to, let's say, a school like Gonzaga, right? Who doesn't have a football program, right? A huge chunk of that revenue is now going to be going more towards their basketball program. Or a school like the University of Arizona, who also doesn't have a football program. All that money is going to go towards their basketball program. It's going to create some unfair advantages, right, for schools that don't have all the same.
But is that unfair advantage better than the unfair advantages that you don't see out there outwardly right now? Because there are unfair advantages going on now.
There's no way you're going to get rid of all advantages.
No, there isn't. And people are still going, like, that's the thing, is there's going to be rules, and there's, like, go back, 2 decades, right? You weren't allowed to pay players. Mm-hmm. It was still happening. Right? And now you're looking at quote unquote unfair situations now that aren't necessarily deemed unfair because there are no rules. Right? Like Arizona State doesn't spend $20 million on its football roster. If it had $20 million to allocate strictly towards football, then 100% you'd do it. Right? But there are other universities like in Ohio State, like in Oregon, like in Georgia, like in Alabama that have different resources to be able to allocate, different donors to be able to throw just a chunk of money at individual players to get them to go play for a season, go play for 2 seasons at that respective university. Mm-hmm. So, like, is that unfair advantage somehow better or worse than being like, okay, now there's a pie of $20.5 million. You got to split it up. It doesn't matter, like, if X sport makes this amount of money or this sport loses you money every single year. Like, which evil would you rather have? Because I think there's pros and cons to both sides, depending on who you ask.
Yeah, there's always going to be a con. I don't want the NCAA just to skate without doing anything and just letting...
The NCAA sucks.
Yeah. But it's like you still got to hold them responsible, right? Just because they suck.
What are we holding the NCAA responsible for?
I don't know, actually laying down regulations, rules, guidelines, things of that nature. But instead, they're just like, y'all got it.
Yeah.
You're good.
But I think there's 2 sides to this coin, because how long have been people saying, they've been barking up the tree of like, we want less from the NCAA. We want the NCAA to start interfering less with everything that's going on in college sports. And now you have a situation where the NCAA is like, sure, fine. You want us to stop dipping our hand in the cookie jar? We'll do that. The conferences have to decide what's going on. And now you have people on the flip side that are like, no, that's not good enough. You need to do X, Y, and Z. Are the conferences
deciding what's going on, or are they just enforcing the rules that have already been decided upon? So the NCAA is deciding the rules and then saying, y'all
not really. The NCAA is not really deciding. The courts are deciding how this is going to realistically play out. But it's going to be up to the conferences to be in charge of like governing it, to make sure that each of these universities is doing.
So what the hell is the NCAA doing?
Nothing. But
they are abolish the NCAA.
They're still, that's the thing, right? The conferences will be in charge of the whole NIL clearinghouse and the revenue sharing cap. The NCAA is still going to be in charge of the amateurism rules, of compensation, of eligibility, in-game rules, and everything that's going on.
They suck at that too.
Well, do you want them to be more involved or less involved?
I want them gone.
You can't have both.
I want them gone.
Do you know initially why the NCAA was constructed?
I don't, but do I want to?
I mean, yeah, initially it was a great thing. You look way, way back to when college sports were like first invented.
Back when Michael Crow was doing track and field for Iowa.
And there was no governing body. There were fan bases and teams that would literally just get into just brutal fights.
That's sick.
On the field over everything that was going on. To the point where people were being gravely injured. Sent to the hospital. I'm pretty sure people died back a long, long time ago when this whole thing first started. And so they needed to have a governing body to obviously make sure people weren't dying and getting killed over just college sports. And then look to what it's turned now. Now that same governing body is being like, you can't make this kind of money.
Yes. However, there's still it's necessary to have a governing body across college athletics.
I agree with you.
You can't just not have it.
No. And I don't think you can let it's a slippery slope to be like, okay, the conferences, major 4 conferences can be in charge of this, but we're in charge of everything else, right? Because if it were to get to a point where the NCAA is like, sure, we're gone. We're not going to do this anymore. It's all up to the conferences. You're going to have such a ridiculous bias, which you already have, to the major 2 conferences within the Power 4. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to get whatever the hell they want, any way they want it. And I don't think that's good for the sport either, right? Like there's got to be some sort of middle ground.
Take us back to 2 years ago when we were here, when the NIL became a thing. 3 years ago. And everything came out and you're like, oh my God, it's the Wild West. This is insane. Like, people are just making money for this, and this school's going to be whatever, and these schools are going to get left in the dust. And to some extent, like, some schools have totally suffered from that.
Yeah.
And our main point when that was happening was, or at least what I was always saying, is 3 years down the line, what we're going to see is the NCAA correct and maybe overcorrect. I still think they need to do some correcting. And I still think there needs to be some type of guideline, and that's what they're trying to go to, but they're not committing to it yet.
Yeah,
there needs to be something. And this cap idea, sure, in theory it can work. In practice, probably won't. There needs to be something though, because we're still kind of in the weird area where a player gets this, a player gets that, and you're like, is that ethical?
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
It's not amateurism anymore. That's what the argument is, right? Is like these kids, and obviously you see it within football and basketball, mainly men's basketball, like some of these players are making a ridiculous amount of money. And I'm all for it. Like, go get your money, go get your bag. The odds of some of these kids ever going pro and having a successful long-term career
and it's
are
funny
already slim.
They're earning,
absolutely,
and they're providing
100%,
financial
100%.
returns.
They've always been
they're playing for.
These sports have always been making a ton of money. It's time for them to get a piece of the pie. I'm absolutely 100% in favor with that. I still feel like there is still so much gray area to the point now where it does, in theory, hurt some of these universities long-term in their images. For, it destroys programs when you invest all of this money. Look at ASU basketball, for example, last season, right? NIL for the last couple of years as it relates to ASU hoops has been relatively poor. The best year that they've had NIL-wise was this past season. Arguably the worst season that they've had on the floor in 10 years with Bobby Hurley at the helm.
It's definitely the most disappointing.
And it's done what to the program, right?
Exactly.
It's gutted it, right? All of that money invested in the ASU men's basketball program last year.
Investors are scared. There's not.
And now you have, one returning player who wasn't even on the roster until January, right? So what does that do long-term for the program? Like you said, scaring off donors, scaring off investors, and ultimately, like, it's really created a lot of distrust and hate toward Bobby Hurley.
And college athletics at its core is not what this is at all. And that's why I've always been like anti-free, whatever, do whatever you want, because it's, and I hate this term because it's a very boomer term, but it feels very mercenary, where you're paying these players, they're coming like I don't know personally. I'm not gonna say that this for sure, but it did feel like some of the players on ASU basketball were just here because they got paid the most money and they came here.
Yeah.
And they weren't playing for maroon and gold, and that's what college athletics is all about. You're playing for Sparky, you're playing for the pitchfork, and that's not. It's so far from that
me
sometimes.
Up, Shane.
But you see that with ASU football. You see the exact opposite.
Exactly.
It feels like,
I think
right?
you see that with hockey as well.
Yeah,
you see like a passion for the program and a passion for representing.
So does that fall on the coach, or like does it fall on the type of player? Like what's the balance there?
It's definitely both, because Coach Kenny is very, very pro person. He's if you're not a good person, I don't want you here. And I think that is an awesome philosophy.
Yeah.
And Bobby is pro player. Like who am I getting on the court? But he's also pro person because he wants to be able to coach these guys and mold them into who he wants them to be. There are many ways around it. It's not a simple answer. It's not black and white. You can't just say it's on the coach or on the player if things don't work out. They're all different philosophies, but inherently you're going to get different results, and you're not always going to be able to read the person correctly when it comes to free world NIL, where you can just pay a player to come to your school.
Yeah,
like people can put on faces. We've all worked with people. You're like, oh my god, yeah, I like this person. Then you start working with them. You're like, oh god. Knew that was going to happen.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Like it's definitely not on the type of person.
Yeah.
And not on the type of coach fully either. But you're going to get 100% of the time. You're going to get some outliers when it's a situation like this.
I do feel like there are ways that, and I don't know if this is an NCAA thing, if this is another court case somewhere down the line. But like if you're doing the revenue sharing this way, where it's like, okay, there's a pot of $20.5 million per university, you have to split it up. Let's say you don't have to split it up by specific sport, right? Like let's say there's percentages of how much money football makes and basketball makes. That okay, ultimately that's what they receive percentage wise in that $20.5 million. Like I think to almost get back to the nature of what college sports is, to what Shane's point was of like, okay, like you don't see players necessarily playing for the logo anymore. You don't see them playing for the university. You see them playing for themselves and their own brand, which again is not necessarily a bad thing in any particular way, but college sports hasn't always been that. Goes back to a conversation that Shane, I think you and I have had on this show a couple different times of like contracts, right? Where it's like, okay, let's say Sam Levitt signs a 3-year NIL deal worth $2.5 million, right? Just throwing out a figure there. If he were to leave, and I mean leave as in transfer, not declare for the draft, then if you were to leave after year 1, you lose 75% of that NIL deal. You get just the 25%. Like you don't get the NIL money until after the fact.
66%. But yeah.
Let's say 66% of that money is gone. If you transfer after year 2, okay, then just 33%, right? Ultimately, that way you're kind of forced to stay here. And if you don't want to, you're still getting a portion of the NIL money that you agreed to. Yeah. But the university gets the money back in which they would have lost.
That's horrible.
You hate that idea.
Horrible.
Why do you hate that
because
idea?
That is a contract. That is a job. You're doing a job. This is not a job.
But it's no longer amateurism as it stands right now.
But nor should it be. But it's not a full-time paying job either. You're a student athlete.
You are a student athlete. But a student athlete makes a lot more money than any of us do.
What's that word mean? You're a student and you're an athlete. You're not a full-time athlete.
But you're making more than full-time money.
Yeah. You shouldn't be making more than professional athletes in your field. It shouldn't be happening.
Shador's NIL evaluation in college was what, $6 million? He just signed his 4-year, $4 million deal.
It shouldn't be happening.
I agree with you. It shouldn't be happening. But I'm not saying like it's the odds of it reverting back to.
Yeah, I know, but this is where the correction comes into play. Like there needs to be something. Like
I don't mind them making more money than pros.
I do.
I think I'm a big advocate of if you have the leverage and you have whatever it takes to get somebody to offer you that type of money, that's your market value. Well, that's what you should play for.
I think there are definitely outliers. Like there are generational talents that can be outliers.
With Shador, right? Like I know we have like with Shador on the field, we didn't think that he was like the best quarterback of all time, like a lot of people in CU did. But what Dion and Shador and Travis Hunter did to revitalize that program and brought the money, and he was probably worth more to CU than he would ever be to the Browns.
Yeah, it's because
unless he actually ends up winning, starting and all that. And that to me is like, okay, if somebody's willing to sit down and pay you that money to provide your services, it doesn't matter if you're 19, 20 years old. You should get that amount of money for your services.
But that case, again, is an outlier. Like that's an outlier. What's not an outlier is women's college basketball, where players like almost have to stay because, and the W is a whole different conversation. Don't even get me started on the W and all that. But like that is in itself is crazy. Like I just in no world does it make sense where a player like why there's a reason why these players are staying in school for 6 years. It's because this is the most money they're going to make in their life.
Yeah, which is fine. I'm absolutely cool with that. But there does need to be you need to draw a line in the sand of like, okay, yes, we are going to give these players a piece of the pie. But what you can't do is you can't jump ship immediately after this year and go take all of our money and then go to another school and do it and go take to another school and do that. Like you've got players transferring 6 times in a span of 4 years. Like that's pretty ridiculous. I'm all for making the money.
Yeah.
But we just talked about ASU basketball being gutted because you spend all this money 1 year on a bunch of players. They all leave. You're left with nothing in your hand except a goose egg. Like there's got to be some sort of line where it's like, yes, the universities for a long period of time were ripping off these players. We're trying to make it right. But it's also like we're going to continue to to destroy what college sports is about if it's just like, hey, you could transfer whenever, wherever, however you want.
The first change to the transfer rule was the correct change. You can transfer once with no penalty. If you transfer a second time, you have to sit out a year. I believe that. There are specific situations where that's unfair, where you have one coach that's horrible, you transfer to another coach, and things don't work out, and it's like a nightmare season, and then you have to transfer again. There are outliers like that, but that's why you got to be careful if you're transferring a second time.
What if it was, and I don't want to cut you off, Rivers,
well, I'm just going to say, if you're watching on TV, the party always continues over at gophnx.com.
What if you had that same rule? You implemented that rule where you could transfer once, no issues. The second time you transfer, you have to sit out a year. But the same rule that is currently in place, that if your coach leaves or is fired, then the portal opens for every player on the roster for 30 days.
Yeah.
That wouldn't impact your transfer rule eligibility. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's something that,
or I think that you could apply as well. Let's say you just transferred and something happened with your family, right? Like the way that you could apply for waivers and stuff. I think that you should be allowed to apply for a penalty-free second transfer, but more often than not, I think limiting the transfers over the money is the way for me. Because listen, man, if you were so damn good at podcasting when you're 19, 20 years old in college, and a company came up to you and was like, we want to pay you $10 million to host a podcast while you're still in school.
Yeah.
Right? And somebody else came in and said, actually, you're only allowed to make $500,000. You'd be so mad. Yeah. Right? And rightfully so, because somebody approached you and said, I'm willing to pay you this amount for your services. And you know what? If that's more than somebody whose full-time gig it is to make shows and podcasts or whatever, that sucks. But I wouldn't say that's unfair, because you still earned what you got. The same way that, Shedeur might need that $6 million from college because it might not work out in the NFL, right? Somebody might be really good in college. How many players do we see take over college?
I'm not saying that these players should be paid.
And then no, but I'm saying even like paid to the most amount and then have a life-changing injury at the end of college, or an injury as a rookie, or doesn't have a good career in the pros, or whatever it might be. And if you only have 3 to 4 to 5 to 8 years in college to make the most amount of money possible, and somebody walks up to you and says, I'm willing to pay you this amount of money out of my own pocket, there should not be a limit on that.
But you're only looking at it as the good. You're only looking at it as the player.
There are bads to this.
There are horribles to it. There are players that get taken advantage of because of this. There are
look at the
Jay
Machado deal.
Yeah, there are programs that get taken advantage of because of this. Like yes, it sounds all well and good. You know what else sounds all well and good? Let's pay everybody $1 million in the world right now. That sounds great. There are repercussions.
And
there are
there's
things
also,
that don't work.
like, if we're talking about similar to the pros, right, which is a lot of this conversation, if it's not amateurism anymore. Like, even the pros have a salary cap, right? Like, even as a pro, depending on what sport, you can only get paid a certain amount of money, right? You look at NBA supermax contracts versus like the minimum contract, right? Like, there's a line of what you can be paid in terms of competitive advantages. So for like Arizona State versus like a Texas, for example, right? I think allowing to pay players now has even the playing field a little bit more than it was before, right? Because these other schools were just paying the players under the table the entire time anyways, and the NCAA would just look the other way. But like, if you're going to do the revenue sharing of $20.5 million, I don't think that you can sit here and be like, okay, here's $10 million this year. We're going to give you another $10 million next year. Like, it has to, for me, I think contracts contractually similar to what we do in the pros is maybe the next step. And I'm sure there are already universities that are already kind of taking that approach.
Now.
Did you see U of A's announcements when their players
contracts signed, right?
Yeah, they said re-signed. The players were re-signing. That makes me want to vomit. That's not college sports.
No, but it is now.
Wow, that was horrifying. Yeah, but again, I think there needs to be some type of correction back the other way, and it can't just keep going down this road. There's a reason why there's a settlement case on this. There's a reason why that this has been talked about at lengths and nobody's had an answer, and it's because it's complex.
I think there's the reason there's no answer is because they haven't let us cook out a solution.
Definitely, man.
I think you could sit us in a room for about 2 hours and we could definitely come up with some sort of solution.
Definitely not get anything done.
We've spent an hour.
Like, guys, why don't you have any resolutions? Sorry, we started snake drafting colors.
Yeah, we started power ranking the words. Oh, my goodness. Look, guys, that is going to do it. for today's episode of the PHNX Sun Devils Show. Make sure you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button, and you drop a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. If you did enjoy today's content, or if you didn't, give us a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at Anthony_Totri. You could follow the sassy passenger princess here to my right, Erik Ruby, at Erik Ruby. That's Erik with a K. You can follow the Deli Man on social at Shane Deef.
Loving tradition, college athletics.
And eating cow stomach as always.
And we will see you guys on a Wednesday. But in the meantime, go Devils. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.